wear the shoes. Today's topic is very important to us. As the State Department for Gender, our main role mainly is legislation, making also national policy frameworks. Apart from that, the policy, after it has come out, we also implement the policy together with partners, more so those who are in the gender space. We all know that we work towards SDGD, how do we call it? Yes, SDG number 5, which is to achieve gender equality. So we have a time frame with which we have actually, as the signatories to that, we have to achieve what is gender equality. So many of our programs, activities are just geared towards achieving that. In the department, we have directorates, different directorates. We have a directorate that deals with gender-based violence, gender mainstreaming, and the one which deals with policy. So all those directorates work together, and the common point is just to achieve gender equality. The department has also some funds that are affirmative action funds. Like we have had the fund for Women Enterprise Fund, that's supporting women in socioeconomic development. We have also NGAF, that is National Affirmative Action Fund. It's also from the department, the one which is actually being actually most of it as in the outside there, we know it as a fund which is belonging to women reps, but the fund is from the State Department for Gender. So that is what the department is doing. Otherwise, affirmative action, I would say, are just the deliberate efforts or strategies that have been put in order to support, more so when we call it in our department, to support those vulnerable groups where we have women, people living with disability. We also have girls there. So those are the people whom we have actually tried to make policies in order to support. I don't have much to say at the moment, but once you have opened the discussion, we'll actually respond to whatever is asked about the department. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much. Tumpigie kofi moja. Ingine. Tena. Shukran. So let me also recognize the apologies of Professor Olive Mugenda, who was actually here. She should have been our keynote speaker. And we sat together with her during the session with the former Prime Minister. Unfortunately, she had to leave because she has a flight from Kisumu at 6. However, part of her team is around yet, but I've sent them a message to come because they have her message, and we are hoping that they'll be able to share with us Professor Olive Mugenda's message. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to open this up by getting into the details of the conversation, and I want to request the technical team if you could help me move this probably to this end here so that our panelists are visible to our audience and delegates. Just move it over here. So let me start with you, Iram, and basically just ask a very simple but not so simple question. We are talking about affirmative action and entrepreneurship, and particularly ensuring that even in this investments conference, no one is left behind. How has your experience been, and how would you rate the engagement of persons with disability in this investments conference, including their engagement?
You've actually put me here on the spot with Waziri. We have made great strides as a nation, especially when it comes to economically empowering persons with disabilities. We do know that we have a huge population, again, as I mentioned, for persons with disabilities, but let me give you facts. Less than 2% of children with disabilities actually go to school. Less than 2%, right? 10% of our total population of women have a disability, right? 1 in every 7 people experiences disability globally. So if you're in a room of 21, 3 of you will experience disability at one point of your life. Scary numbers, right? Now, when we're talking about economic empowerment, how do we ensure that our youth or our women or our children grow to be economically empowered if we don't have proper education systems? We need to start there. So investments need to start from that level, right? Ensuring that we have facilities that accommodate children with disabilities. And when we're talking about disabilities, please note, it's not your typical physical, visual, hearing, because that's what we always assume is a disability. We have vast types of impairments. We have children with cerebral palsy. We have children with Down syndrome. We have dyslexic children, children who go to school and are called foolish and stupid because they can't read. And this is because our teachers are not empowered and trained to be able to identify the impairments that exist with these children and start to sort of teach the learning method. So it's a universal design of teaching and learning as well for those students. Moving forward, they have grown, they become youth. Do we have facilities, our technical institutions, to take in the students with impairments? We have made great strides in particular universities. Light for the World is working with a number of universities and TVETs. Shamberere, we have SICRI, we have USIU, ZTech, Masinde Muliro, which are making great steps to including persons with disabilities. They will go to the institution where investments have been made, and then they will become professional students because as a country we have not embraced inclusion within the workforce. So what the challenge we face now is we are having students with disabilities who are now becoming permanent interns. Are we making investments out there to ensure that our organizations or whatever initiatives we are making out there are inclusive? We have students who have done 3, 4, 5 internships and have no hope of employment because we're not ready for them. Right? So as a country, we are losing about 7 to 10% of our GDP because we're not engaging persons with disabilities in our economic space. That's big. If you're setting up a hotel, we've heard the governor talking about initiatives of putting up hotels. If they're not accessible, even if I am a wealthy person and I have a disability or I have a child with a disability, I will not come and put up my money in that hotel. So you've locked out a family of 5 or 8 because it's not accessible to us. That's a loss in the economy. So I think even in the conference here today, and I think I made a comment, Kevin, of why didn't we have sign language interpreters? Did anybody notice that? What if we had an investor who was deaf? What if we had an investor who was deaf? Haven't we locked out that opportunity? Who says we don't have millionaire investors who are deaf? Who says we don't have investors who are blind? Did we have programs that were accessible in the conference for those individuals? We've locked them out. So it starts from the ground, and we need to bring it up there. We need to ensure that even those people we are targeting, the place is accessible to them. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you. I think you've given us a very big global overview of a very simple question, which I like, because the beauty is that you ended, the answer became the last point that you made in terms of whether this conference, in terms of attracting investors, from the onset, the thinking, the planning, now the execution was ready for inclusivity, particularly looking at investors who would probably be able differently, among others. But John, as you spoke to us initially, you mentioned that you advise 14 LREB counties. And I'm just wondering, what kind of experiences have you had, particularly when it comes to inclusion of persons with various disabilities or able differently? And particularly looking at investments in terms of affirmative action by county governments, not by national government, because we'll be hearing from the State Department. But what are some of these things that you have seen the LREB counties putting in place to safeguard the interests of persons with disability, women and youth, particularly around affirmative action concerns? John. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bwana Moderator. And just to pick up from where my sister has left, and just to say he's brought out a critical issue about gender equality and social inclusion, that as a matter of right, it does not just benefit those who are doing it or those whom we are targeting as vulnerable groups, but also can benefit us. Look at the missed opportunity as a result of not being inclusive in our planning and in our thinking. So when we are thinking about GESI, or gender equality and social inclusion, let's think about it as as a way of bringing everybody on the table, and as such then we are able to benefit more as compared to when we're excluding quite a big section of our population. Has already been indicated, almost a third of our population is almost left out anytime we don't have GESI consideration in our thinking and in our design. About Lake Region Economic Bloc counties, attempts have been made by a few counties to have in place policies largely on disability, but not totally on social inclusion. So you find that these policies tend to address certain aspects of vulnerability while leaving out certain areas. So there will always be a bias around maybe women or youth, and not thinking about it in its totality. So the only value I'll add in terms of just saying that our counties have, in one way or another, attempted to integrate issue of gender equality and social inclusion, though piecemeal, is that if these policies could be looked at in totality, targeting all these vulnerable groups, rather than running away with one particular group, well, you could attribute that to probably what you want to say, level of activism or champions around certain groups. But I think what I would want to encourage is a situation where by default, whenever we are thinking about intervention, whenever we are thinking about policy, we are looking at the totality of vulnerable groups, not just our women, not just our youths, not just persons with disability, essentially not leaving anyone behind. Something has been done, but much more could be done. My sisters talked about, well, you can be able to move a step where you are able to secure probably internship for the vulnerable. But then moving them to the next level, because much of the time these things are done to tick the boxes. Just to say, if you have a policy in place, then have we ticked the box around making this work? And much of the time they work around conditional grants, or when there are conditions to be met for our institutions or governments to be able to access certain benefits. So they are basically benefit driven and around basically ticking the right boxes. But in essence, whether even what we set out in policy is practiced is something that we really need to think about and see how we can be able to progress that from policy to action. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Very well put. And I'm just wondering, as you talk about policy to practice, and during the official session there, we had the speaker, the honorable speaker, talking about certain bills that have already been put in place or passed by the county assembly. And one of those bills was the Homa Bay County Investments Bill. And Madam Waziri, we are here talking about investments. And during your opening speech here also, you mentioned to us that you have already as a county put in place 2 policy frameworks. One is a sexual and gender-based violence and also women empowerment policy. The question is, to what extent are marginalized groups engaged in the formulation aspects of these policies, right from the planning or maybe the research perspective? Does Homa Bay County have a database of persons with disabilities by age, maybe even by career, probably even by location? Is that something that is possible so that we move it from policy to actual practice, Madam Waziri?
Thank you, Kevin. I think Homa Bay is one of the counties that have made a stride when it comes to policy development. Yes, we've got a policy on SGBV, and it is all-inclusive. It's protecting our women, both with disabilities or not. It protects our youth as well. And when it comes to the policy on investment, the investment policy, our youth and women are also covered in it. And we've started implementing as a department. We work closely with our disability forums. And we've started in a small scale, not in a very large scale, to empower our people with disabilities in their various fields of trade. They might not be big, but that is their livelihood. So after some research, through our departmental staff, we identify what they're doing, and then we try to empower them by giving them tools of trade in their various areas of operations, just to improve their livelihoods. For those who are engaged in cyber work, we give them computers, laptops. It was the first strategy that we tried, and it was in a very small scale, because I think we only reached around 24 of them with tools of trade. We gave them car wash machines, we gave them power saws, and some of them who are involved in carpentry, we gave them carpentry toolboxes. So it's in a small scale, I must say, because of financial constraints, but it's something we are hoping to upscale, and we are attracting, or rather reaching out to our partners who can also be interested in the same, to help us capacity build them through their various areas of trade. But I must also confess that the policies have also not been implemented to a great deal because of lack of finances. In our CRDP and in our first budget, we budgeted for some grants for women, youth, and people with disability. Because of lack of policies then, we were not able to implement. But now, because we have policies in place, I think through my department alone, we are able to recall that grant, and we will be able to empower our persons with disability. It's a thorn that we are struggling with, because the society, again, the way they view our people with disability, it requires combined forces, people who can fight the same cause to help us protect. Just as you've identified, even in the planning of the programs for this conference, it was overlooked. It's only now I'm seeing our sign language interpreter. I didn't see her in the main plenary. I think it was a great oversight. And therefore, I think this is an issue that needs a combined effort with our partners to engage our people with disability. Like we said, groundnut can be grown anywhere. And even the people with disabilities own land. Land in Homa Bay is available, and it's very, very fertile. What they lack is just a little tweaking of finances. And they can do what they're doing with sorghum now. If they can produce sorghum, then they can produce groundnuts. Then they can produce sunflower and even palm oil. Then with a little capacity building through trainings, which is also a challenge because sometimes we lack the finances to train them, to know that they are able to do what we are now discussing here. So the trainings are very essential to us. About database, we are in the process of building our database. but not really fully developed. We've not gone down to the ground to classify them as per age, as per what they're trained in, as for those who have not gone to school, as at, yes, various business interests. But I think this is an area that we need to explore so that as we deal with their issues, they are very, very targeted efforts. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you so much, Waziri. Very well put. And I have to admit that you're one of the few CECs who will admit where things are not working. And I think it's quite impressive that you have admitted that within the policies, within the CIDP, there are aspects that really are not working. And I believe that that's broadly why we have investors in the room to be able to help us deal with some of those challenges, covering largely on how we can be able to ensure that no one is left behind.
Yes, just a minute. Okay. You said about inclusion in developing these things. Our approach to development in Homa Bay is bottom-up. Let me use that. It's all participatory. So we go to the ground, we do public participation, and our people with disability are always involved. So it's always a public participatory approach. Even when we were developing our CIDP, we went to the ground. When we were developing the policies, it starts with the ground. So that one, it was well done. And I think I commend the team for that.
Thank you. Asante sana, Waziri. Now, actually, as I mentioned, the policy development process, I think is Madam Dolphin who shared this document, and so we can see. I don't know whether the county has enough copies for our investors in the room. This is Homa Bay County Sexual and Gender-Based Violence Policy for 2023, quite fresh and new, and so we can probably ask for some of the copies to go and read. And so, Bwana William, even as we talk about engagement and involvement of marginalized groups, persons with disability, women, and youth, one of the key issues that keeps coming up when we talk about affirmative action and entrepreneurship is uptake of affirmative action funds. And beside all the things, there are about 11 different affirmative action programs, including the funds that the national government has. One of the biggest challenges has been the uptake. Of course, there is the accessibility, the broader accessibility question. What is your experience? As you mentioned as you made your remarks, your opening remarks, you mentioned that you're the county director. What has been your experience linking between national government affirmative action and entrepreneurship funds and processes respectively, and the county ongoing processes? Bwana William.
Thank you, Mr. Kevin. Well, what I would say, these funds, the uptake is not actually adequate. It is still low. We have the categories of these funds, as I've said. We have a WESO fund, Women Enterprise Fund, Youth Enterprise Fund. But what we have, even in the county, the uptake is not, I would say it's not above 70%. It is still low. This is a revolving fund, but it's given as a loan well. But you find that most of these youths, women, some still fear having these funds. They don't want to borrow because maybe they don't have proper plans to do with these funds. Some who have also taken, many have also become defaulters. I remember even yesterday I was with the officer in charge of youth fund. She came to my office complaining that most of the youth groups that have taken the funds have defaulted. They are not actually paying well. And when it's done like that, groups that are still not in the program and would want also to register may not have that fund. because what is allocated to a constituency is revolving within that constituency. So it is upon the groups that have actually benefited to refund for others also to benefit. And if they don't do that, it actually decreases the aspect of many groups getting that fund. So that is something which is in the county and has been realized by the officers working in those areas. A fund which I would say is not badly off is Women Enterprise Fund. With it, like women, they fear or they know how to manage what they get as a loan. So that is the fund I would say is not badly off, but still we have defaulters. I also have said that we have within national government affirmative action funds, we also have grants which is given to groups, these vulnerable groups. We have a fund given to youth groups, a fund given to women group, and so forth. But that is a grant. It's not enough, but with it, it is popular. When it is there, many groups actually try to apply. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure that even as we have this conversation, I see lots of investors in the room and beneficiaries or other people who tried to access. Ladies and gentlemen who have tried to access these funds and probably have been successful or not. So we'll be having a session just for us to share our stories. But before we get to our delegates and investors in the room, to my farthest right is our long-awaited keynote speaker, Madam Ruth Ndungu, who is representing Professor Olive Mugenda. We were together with her trying to ask Prof to stay back, but I'm sure she's much more able and competent to explain where Professor is. So, Madam Ruth, you can speak to us. I'll give you just 4 minutes to do your keynote, and then we'll open up the discussion with our investors and us panelists. Karibu.
Thank you so much, moderator of the session, and everyone who is here. Good afternoon. Yes, as I've been introduced, I'm Dr. Ruth Ndungu from KU Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital. And I'm representing Professor Mugenda, who had to travel back, so she couldn't be here to present. And she had been requested to talk about affirmative action, and I've already had a number of things that she would have talked about mentioned here. So I won't repeat what I've had my colleagues already say. But when we're looking at affirmative action in Kenya in general, we know that as a country we've made some good progress, especially when you look at the Constitution. It promotes economic empowerment of the groups that have historically been marginalized. And I say historically because many times when we think of affirmative action, we're thinking of persons living with disability, but the youth and women have also historically been disadvantaged where economic opportunities are concerned. But that has now been taken care of by the Constitution. And, you know, apart from the Constitution, even the creation of ministries that handle that, and we are seeing that now even at the county level, that there's clear affirmative action in counties. In fact, Madam CC, we were looking at Homa Bay County, and we saw from some statistics, maybe you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that women and youth form 52% of Homa Bay's 1.2 million population, while the youth form 75%. And also the fact that the county, 1/3 of teenage girls aged 15 to 19 years old are either mothers or they're pregnant, and therefore a need for a very deliberate affirmative action in order to ensure that it doesn't become cyclic, that poverty does not move from one generation to the other. And one of the things we noted is that at least in Homabay, there's a gender inclusion and participation policy for municipalities, a disability policy, a sexual and gender-based policy. Because that has looked at digital financial services. And they have also partnered with mobile network operators, with banks, with fintech companies to roll out mobile money and digital payment solutions. And maybe this is something that has promoted the percentage of repayment. The Kiambu County says that the level of defaulting is not as high as it was before they embarked on this. So through their digital financial services, they've been able to facilitate cashless transactions and improve efficiency and especially repayments. So when we're looking at financial inclusion, in order to operationalize the policies that have been developed through the affirmative actions, then we need to think of access, we need to think of affordability, diversity, and awareness and capacity building, especially awareness through a forum like this, where the representatives of the groups, the disadvantaged groups, are invited, and they know what investment opportunities are there and how they can engage with the same. So we need to take advantage of all the three aspects: policies, funds, and also the raising of awareness and making sure that we make whatever, we keep monitoring whatever it is that we have purposed to implement. Thank you.
Shukran, shukran. Very well said. Kofi moja kwake. Tena, thank you, Daktari. Accessibility, affordability, awareness creation, capacity building, framing it on policies, availability of funds, and much more fundamentally, continuous monitoring of implementation of these affirmative action processes. I am hoping that our rapporteurs are, where are our rapporteurs? Thank you, I see you, thank you very much. I'm hoping that you're helping us to capture these points, because we want to provide a proper document that really captivates interest of our investors to come and support this process. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we throw it back to you. If you have any questions, any comments that you want to make, any success stories, or maybe you have a story like mine, because Hustler Fund is also one of the affirmative action funds, and I have tried to access that fund many times. I have never been successful. So you have a sad, if you probably have a sad story like mine, or of my father who keeps trying to access Hustler's Fund and is always credited up to only 700 shillings. However much we do Fuliza to boost his balance, who are equal to 700. Why, Ndugu William? So maybe you have a story like mine or my father's. Have tried accessing affirmative action funds to no avail. Please shoot up your hand. You have any questions? You have any comments? I see your hands. Do we have roving mics? Please give them so that we can listen to them. You give us your name. Basically introduce yourself, your name, where you come from, who you are, and then you shoot your question, comment, and if possible, in terms of management of time, you can identify who it is that you'd wish to respond to the question, or you can go silent on that. I'm sure that all our panelists are very capable of addressing. Thank you and welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Ellen Atieno Ouma. Ellen Atieno works for Uraia Trust as a civic educator. So my interest solely is on meaningful participation, civic education, and we also do budget cycle. We train budget champions, and one of the issues we really look at is inclusivity. These forums, do we have all the categories that we've spoken about? Persons with disability, do we have our youths, do we have our women? And if we have them, are they capable of participating meaningfully? So I believe I'm in the right forum. My first question will be short to the lady, the third, I didn't get the name. Yes.
Iram.
I am not a person with disability, but then when we talk inclusion, we get to learn about issues they are facing. So one of them is the diversity of that group, and the fact that representation comes from a certain group within the main group. So you spoke about dyslexic members of the society, or the ones with the cerebral, it's called, it has a name, neurodiversity. Yes, so how do we ensure that these other groups, are the interests are represented? Because when we are working with the national demographics, this cadre that is within the bigger umbrella of persons with disability affect the other group in terms of dependency. We are talking economic empowerment. I'm looking at the lady we did a feature on in Rusinga who has 7 kids with disability. So they have to chain them in the house and they do not go anywhere because they're also violent. So how do these people feed? So when you're doing representation of persons with disability, is there a way that if we have Odwar, who is a person with, is a representation of that group, is there a way we can capacity build them for her to effectively represent the other team? That is a gray area that we are working on. The other area we have an issue with is the numbers. We still have an issue of people coming out to speak, or we have an issue of people understanding disability. Yes, and that is obviously because of literacy issues addressed by our CEC. We are, you said averagely literate, huh? Yes, so we have that. So education is also another thing, because we believe these people can be taught. There is what you call pattern learning. Huh? If you go to KISE, there is pattern learning. We really need to incorporate them, have a way of how they survive with the general public. How do they work on their toilet manners, hygiene, coexistence with the other members of the society? So I hope you address that to that effect. Secondly, I'm looking at Homa Bay, which has teenage mothers who are later introduced into the job market, not because they want to work, but because they don't want to depend on anyone. These are people without identification cards. They vend in our markets. Someone spoke about financial institutions. You want to empower this person economically. In the absence of silks, and what we do here is merry-go-round, how then do you empower these people? Because they are not exempted from tax for being young. Dongi juogo ge, here we call market levies juogo. So when the guy who comes collecting the levy for the market, they don't pass them because they are young. They wouldn't say, you look 16, so we'll just give you a slap in the wrist. No. So how do we help them? So are there structures that can harbor them? Not to encourage them to get pregnant young and become mothers young, but then how do we help them? Because they are in that position. Finally, nimeenda sana. Mwisho. On policies. Leon, help me with that word.
Operationalization.
Thank you.
All right.
Operationalization. You said we have very good policies, and the gap that we have as it now is the fact that they are not operationalized. I was discussing something, I won't disclose what, with the guy from finance on allocations for these departments. We are working with an umbrella allocation that is not specific to specific issues. How then do we fast track these things? Because in an area where we have persons with disability who are not capacity built, that is, they're not capacity built, institutional strengthening, They are not capacity built, and we want them to bring out their issues in their crude form and make sure that they are addressed in a way that they want, not think for them and assume this is what they want. So
that one, operationalization. Rationalization.
Operationalization, I got it. Will only come if we include these people, and not just include them to fill in these gaps. Huh? We include them and ensure that they participate meaningfully.
Thank you. So I'm sure that we have picked those concerns. We can give to the gentleman. Yeah, I think we are close to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Eric Sande. I work with the United Disabled Persons of Kenya. That is a UDPK. And I will first say that we were part of the team that supported the sign language interpreters. So they were there. Maybe you didn't get to see them, but they were there. We supported 4 through our partnership with the site savers. So I have one comment also that today disability community is actually brimming with boundless potential. And I want to say this because right now we are part of the team that works with sorghum farmers with disabilities in this county. And we work in 3 sub-counties. And we have managed to reach out to over 1,000 sorghum farmers with disabilities, only in 3 sub-counties. So I will say this, that in terms of building the capacity of the disability community, measures have been put in place, and I also want to thank the county government of Homa Bay County, which we work very close with. So the issue here is the aspect of accessibility. And working with sorghum farmers, the challenge that they have been able to highlight is the issue of access to finance. Because we all know that there are what we call disability-related costs. So then the question is, how do we then partner with the county to make sure that the access to finance to enhance the capacity of persons with disabilities is well catered for? That is the main question, and I would like to get thoughts of Madam CEC and also Ms. Iram, yes, on that access to finance, because that is the elephant in the room. We have people who are, committed, but now there are gaps on how they can access finance in order now to make sure that they better their livelihoods. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very big, deep questions. Next, I see all your hands. We'll get an opportunity to speak. I thought you were... Oh, okay. All right.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Tom Okiki, chairman of Homa Bay County Disability Forum. To the panelists, I'm very grateful on the issues you've highlighted on persons with disabilities, to accommodate persons with disabilities in different levels. I congratulate you. Now I've seen the panelists. My concern is next time kindly include persons with disabilities to be one of the panelists. I don't know if you have agreed with me. Like our sister, you talked about there was no interpreters, but we know there were interpreters. Even if you are very keen, in the screen there were interpreters. I'm here as a person who is deaf, and there were deaf also there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tom. I think Tom is giving us a... Yes.
I forgotten about what our brother was talking. They were talking about it is the organization Inside Savers that supported sign language interpreters. For sign language interpreters. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have another hand here, and as the mic gets to that place, can we? Yes, thank you. I want to agree with you, Tom. In fact, we were having a discussion with Chief Isaac and Waziri yesterday, whether we could get a youth from the county and also either a woman or a person with a disability as part of the panel. I think many things happened, but so we are glad that the plenum is going on. Yes, please, proceed.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It is very unfortunate truth that disability is a club that anyone can join at any point in life. You talked about 15% of the total population are people living with disability.
Yeah. We'll have that as the last question for this session, then we come back to our panelists.
Thank you. Mine is not a question, but just a statement, and maybe to share with you what we do to actually build morals entrepreneurs. My name is Pius Rotich from the Kenya Investment Authority. We are part of this conference, and we've helped them to actually come up with the projects which are actually ready for investors. We are focused on this session today as Kenya Investment Authority because we want to take forward economic empowerment, economic inclusion. We are running two programs which are called Wekeza Dada and Vijana to Invest. Actually, Wekeza Dada, we are looking at graduating our dadas, our women, our sisters from being traders in the market to now to become investors. And in Vijana to Invest, we want to unleash the potential of the Vijanas, the young ones, because these people actually can come up with, they are very innovative, and we want to unleash them. And most of the businesses which are doing very well in the world today are technology based, and this can only be gotten from the young ones. So we are also running that Vijana to Invest, and we want to build actually and create entrepreneurs. And in our department, we want to build today's SMEs to be tomorrow's multinationals. And we are targeting to capacity build them We are targeting 100 women and 100 youth by every county, which will translate to 4,700 in the next 1 year. We will be doing so physically and virtually, and we will actually be carrying out what we call investment-made easy clinics in order for us to demystify the investment so that our daughters, our sisters, and the young ones may not see themselves as not being investors. We want to demystify investment promotion so that each and everyone, be it a young one, be it a person with disability, can see himself or herself as being an investor. We are going to profile them, profile their companies, so that we can actually project and create them to partner with international, local and international partners for economic development. So, in short, we are saying that we will be reaching out to all the counties, but specifically, we have started the journey with the Homa Bay County, and we shall be working with them closely so that we can create 100 entrepreneurs in terms of women and 100 entrepreneurs in terms of the youth. This will culminate in a bigger event, which we are going to host in Nairobi on 9 to 11 May, called the National Entrepreneurship Summit. So together with the Homa Bay County, we shall be working to focus on building today's small and medium enterprise to be tomorrow's multinational. And as the discussion has been now, we will take into account and include the persons with disabilities. I have my colleague who is here, and we shall be working closely with him, Joseph Kemboy, and he will actually be able to incorporate and bring on the participation of the Homa Bay County, through the county government, so that we can participate in this entrepreneurship summit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bwana. Is it Pius or Pius?
In Kenya, they say Pius, but when I'm out of the country, they say Pius.
Yeah, because I had to be very careful so that I'm not misquoted to either have gone to group of schools or to that village school where I went to. So I'll excuse my little sister here to probably give us her question, then we can come to the panelists, right? Though I had a question for Pius or Pius, yes, over there. And I hope that, yes, the lady over there, yeah. I'll still ask you my question, Pius, later, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I believe I'm Little, and I'm also the County Director for Social Services.
Wow.
So my question, first and foremost, my question goes to my sister. I think I've forgotten her name, but she's from the Light for the World. Thank you. As years goes by, we are coming out of the integration for learners with disability in various schools. We are going to the inclusion part of it. What are the strategies that are put in place to ensure that proper inclusion is done to different type of disability in one setup? Last is not a question, but is now just I don't know how I can put it, but how I wish that you can advise you may advise the KICD to kindly ensure that sign language interpretation becomes part of the curriculum for the entire syllabus, not just for the special schools for the hearing impairment, so that at least all the learners, as years goes by, at least they have the basic sign language. They can communicate with our fellow who are of hearing impairment. Thank you.
Shukran. We can give a good hearty clap to our investment speakers. Kofi moja, ingine, ya tatu, asanteni. So we have a raft of questions, about 4 of them, and 3 comments, ranging from issues of inclusivity by Pamela, database issues again, concerns around neurodiversity, allocation of resources, and the hard, difficult word, Pamela, operationalization. Then we had the second issue on accessibility, and I'm hoping that our panelists picked these questions with an example of sorghum farmers and their challenges in accessing finance. So the question is, how can we enhance partnership with the county government to also enable farmers of sorghum, and those are farmers with disability, to access funds. Tom Okiki, representation of the panel. I think that was something that was properly canvassed, and if any of us picked it up, you can also respond, particularly Madam Waziri and Wana William. Then we had a question on facilities and how disabled-friendly and friendly they are. What are the strategies that we are putting in place to ensure that we beat this so that we get to the last mile of the grid? And then Pius from Can Invest Authority has talked to us about Wekeza Dada and also Vijana in Invest. I think these were comments. Yes, but I want to ask you the question around what is the process of getting the 100 youth and the 100 women from Homa Bay County. You will respond to that as so that we can also motivate most of the young ones that we have here. And then the country director has challenged us. Any of us can respond to the KICD and curriculum issues. So where do we start? Hiram, I see you already holding the mic. We each have maybe 3 minutes to respond to any of the questions. Karibu.
I can't have more.
Okay, we'll give you 4.
Okay. I think the first one was accessing the underrepresented impairments and having them have a voice, correct? Light for the World has a very great initiative that's coming up, running for the next 8 years, whereby we are targeting about 100,000 to 200,000 youth with disabilities in the next 8 years in Kenya to economically empower them. That's a big number. You can hear we are looking at 100 entrepreneurs. How many of those entrepreneurs are going to be persons with disabilities is a question I would ask. What percentage are we putting there, right? 100,000 is a big number. And when we're looking at that, 70% of that number are going to be, first of all, 100,000 is youth with disabilities, 18 to 35. 70% of that are going to be women, right? And majority are going to be the underrepresented impaired, because those are the forgotten. Normally discrimination comes with education, being a girl, right? And then lack of education, isn't it? Moves you 2 steps back. Then having a disability moves you 3 steps back. And then having an underrepresented impairment takes you 4 steps back. So by the time you're catching up with a man without a disability, is no mean feat, right? So what we're doing is basically going to the grassroots level, working with organizations of persons with disabilities, focusing on the unrepresented impairments and asking, how can we help? And what we're basically doing is giving 2 options. Do we take you through the employability skills training? And employability skills training doesn't mean that you're looking for a white-collar job. It means that I want to be employed and I don't know what I can do. So saying that, okay, let's take you through the employability skills training. But while you're going through that, there are opportunities of technical skills training that will be offered as well. And you can decide, I can do tailoring, I can do carpentry, I can do go into the gig economy, right? We have hotels in Germany that are employing youth with Down syndrome. Yes, and it's working so well. We have restaurants in Nairobi that are taking in persons with hearing impairment, the deaf, as waiters. And that guy opened the first restaurant, and within a year, he's opened 4, including in Diani. What does that mean? There's talent out there. So accessibility in terms of giving them opportunities is going out there to the grassroots level, picking them off their homes, because these are youth who are putting closed doors, right? How many of you have seen somebody with Down syndrome, a youth in the marketplace? Put your hand up. No. Cerebral palsy? In the marketplace, selling. Not buying, selling. You've seen one? Yeah. One in her lifetime. right? That means we have so many out there, but they're not given these opportunities. There's a lot of stigma in the community. We are working as Light for the World to bring them out there, to empower them, entrepreneurship, bringing them, taking them through entrepreneurship skills training and saying, you're ready for this. We're looking at intellectually impaired, because this is also a forgotten impairment, right? When you're talking about the representation, is they're individuals, but they have caregivers. The caregivers need to be trained to give them a voice, not to be their voice. Not to be their voice, because that's a space we are in now. They're speaking on their behalf. We need to have them speak for themselves. And they can only do that if they're empowered. So Life for the World has made great strides. We are making great strides for the next 8 years. It's no mean feat again. It's not going to be easy. This is a space is untapped. That was one question. The second question I would answer was in terms of access to finance. We are also working with a number of county governments. I think Kakamega is one of them, where we have worked with approximately 30 micro-entrepreneurs for the last 4 years, if I'm not wrong, Waziri, whereby we have capacity built them into getting sort of formalized businesses. These are micro-entrepreneurs who've been running businesses, micro-entrepreneurs with disabilities, who've been running businesses but very informal. So what we have done is help them formalize their businesses, take them through the technical skills if need be, taken them through the regulatory requirements, so if they need to register their businesses, walk that journey with them, and then also bring in financial institutions and link them, right? We have institutions like Equity Bank that has products with particular leniencies that accommodate persons with disabilities. We have Post Bank that is going out to the villages and sort of giving financial literacy trainings. We work with them. In the 8 counties that we work with, they have gone there, they have trained the micro-entrepreneurs, they have opened accounts for them, they have understood where the gaps are. They're coming in the programs that we are running and saying, how can we support? So they are there, right? I do know that National Council has the LPO financing for some of the entrepreneurs with disabilities. Do people apply for it? I'm not sure, because I will tell you for sure, National Council comes to us and says, guys, where are your people? Why are they not applying? Right? And I'll tell you, they applied initially because National Council did not have the right framework to get back the money. Right? So they would apply, get LPO financing, and disappear. What National Council has done now has established a whole framework in partnership with KCB Bank, where it's at 0 interest. But KCB Bank will facilitate the loan. And that's where the drop has come. Right? So the finances are there. It's how do we access it? What sort of products are we going for? But then also, Light for the World is working together with institutions. We are open to working with institutions to help them support their systems to accommodate persons with disabilities. Right? When you talk about people in the market not having the documents and all, we come in there and say, where are you struggling? Do you need KEBS? Because your product needs KEBS, right? Do you need a license to operate? Do you need to have your certificate of exemption to be able to access this tender? We will walk that journey with you. But we will also work with that institution. We will work with Equity Bank and ensure that are your staff aware that there are persons with disabilities who will access these products? Are your staff aware that your products are not accessible on paper? Is your website accessible so that persons with disabilities with visual impairment can go onto your website, access the application form, and apply, right? It has to work both ways, where we are empowering persons with disabilities, but we are also empowering the society as a whole to be able to embrace these individuals. I hope I've answered your questions.
Thank you very much. Doctor, yes, we can pass it over to Waziri.
Okay, thank you. When talking about access to finances, I must say there are a lot of sources of finance around. And there are able people or organizations that are ready to support the women, the youth, and even people with disability. But we're challenged. One, our people are not aware of these sources. So awareness creation needs to be done. And this is a space that has not really been capacity built. So as a county, we are also challenged in that capacity building of these people has not been done well. In as much as we're struggling to develop, in fact, our development is at par. Homa Bay County, for example, we are rated to be maybe number one as in improving in development. But our social space has not been really captured, especially on empowerment issues. And therefore, we are losing a lot. Just as Imran said, that our GDP is really affected because we have not targeted a certain group. And therefore, we are calling for partners who can come into this space to help us capacity build, train the people with disability, to create awareness on the available institutions that can help us give them money or access finances for their entrepreneurship, for their development. So this is a space that has really not been capitalized into, but we are struggling and grumbling as a county to capacity build them with the little resources and the partners that have come in our space to just make that the awareness. And I know we are going to really tough because all of them are educated. Most of them are educated in one way or the other. They only need just a little tweaking and they will be in place. We will not be crying of our women, youth being without employment or being unemployed. I also wanted to say that on enabling environment for our young ones to access education, just as Lucy said, Lucy is the lady who was seated here. She's my director, by the way. So you can also note that Homa Bay has really included persons with disability. She really boasts about it. And she's not one of them. One of them is also looking at me from behind there. So our people are not left behind. Yes, is one of our employees as well. So they are inside this room. When it comes to education of our children, we know that people able differently require special education or learning instruments. And these learning instruments sometimes are very expensive. And governments, especially the local governments, sometimes just assume and downplay their importance. And therefore, you find our disabled children in school, and they would be lacking such learning resources. And therefore, when you're talking about inclusion, it means that even our teachers would be taught on basic skills on how to handle children with disability. This is an area that we need also to capitalize on. If we can find people to capacity build our teachers on special education, because now they'll be learning with our children in the normal schools. This affects them again in extracurricular activities. Their sporting activities are quite different and varied and very expensive again, and then they will be left behind. As a department, I've been faced with a lot of requests to facilitate Paralympic Games and support them in sports, co-curriculum activities, but I might also be disabled as a department because of lack of finances. This space, again, I'm calling for anybody who might be able to assist, especially in sports. I must confess I've done poorly when it comes to assisting people with disability in their extracurricular activities. I've done once or twice, but not to the level that we might expect. Just as somebody said, that our budgets are umbrella budgets. They are not specific. And therefore, we might not reach to the specific groups, the women, the youth, the people with disability as required. And so targeted budgeting, I think, is another solution to this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Waziri. Doctor, yes, you can proceed, Dr. Ruth.
Thank you. I want to comment about something Lucy raised. The fact that we need training across board. Because one of the things that we do is adhere to policy even constitutional requirements of the number of people living with disability whom we must employ. But then, for instance, you employ somebody with hearing disability, but the people in the office where that person is going to work have no capacity. So you have a challenge communicating with those people. So as a county, even as you look at, the physical infrastructure, we must also look at the human resource and ask ourselves, are we equipped to work with these people? However, there's something I was looking at in terms of supporting the vulnerable groups, the women, the youth, and the persons living with disability, that won't cost much other than a change of attitude. In many places, there's a question Imram asked, whether you've ever seen anybody with autism in a marketplace. And it made me remember the kind of harassment that person was enduring in the market. So a change of attitude will not cost us. Increasing the security of these people so that they are not harassed, they are not discriminated against, they are not even taken advantage of, is something that we can do, and it doesn't require a budget allocation. It simply requires a change of mindset, knowing that these are fellow human beings, people whom we need to capacity build, and people we need to support in order for them to contribute meaningfully to the economy. So your question made me remember the way, people would want to buy from him so that they can even take advantage of him. That simply requires a change of mindset. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Yes, Aaron?
Yeah, I think just to re-emphasize that is what we have done at Light for the World, because we have run programs with almost 1,000 youth with disabilities in the different universities and doing linkages to workplaces. You will notice the biggest fear when it comes to employment of persons with disabilities is it's too expensive. Why? Because, as you've mentioned, is an assumption that because I have a hearing impaired person, I possibly need a sign language interpreter, right? In our current office setup, we have our accountant has a hearing impairment. We only bring a sign language interpreter on team meetings, right? And this is office team meetings, so the interpreter will come in at very crucial times. Every day-to-day work is done without an interpreter. It is expected that we need to embrace that individual and learn and accommodate that individual, right? When I bring in a person with a physical impairment, as long as my space is is accessible, right? And the government has made great strides to accommodate this. People are not aware that there's a 50% tax rebate to the amount of physical adjustment you make. So if you put up a ramp and it's costing you 15,000, you get a tax rebate of 7,500. You've got a tax rebate of gross salary of that individual you're paying to be your employee. Did we know that? We don't, right? So I think the government has to talk about these things as well, change that mindset. It comes from the top. Not everything comes from the bottom. Inclusion has to come from the top. If your governor has not bought into inclusion, you will not have inclusion at the grassroots level. If your headmaster has not bought into inclusion, you will not have inclusion with your students. Inclusion is one of those things that has to come from the top. It's never bottom up. It affects the people at the bottom, but it has to have the buy-in at the top. Because policies come from the top, don't they? Right? Funds come from the top, don't they? Right? So if you don't have it from the top, nothing works. The mindset will only be changed once the mindset of that leadership has changed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Asante sana. John, anything on any of the comments, questions?
Well, None was directed at me, but maybe just to pinpoint around what we've done as the UK around social inclusion. And in the region and within the country, we've tried to implement a program on girls out of school, essentially targeting girls with disability. And you know that is double jeopardy. If you're disabled and then you're a girl, and worse still, you could still be a mother, it becomes a triple tragedy, so to speak. So what we did was basically is to make sure that for those whom we are able to keep in school, were kept in school, and of course making sure that where there are mothers, probably there's provision of childcare within the school, so that as a young mother she's also able to attend school, and those who are not able to remain in school, because motherhood also comes with the responsibility. Probably they're in marriages and they've not been able to continue with the school. Basically, we were looking at how to equip them with life skills around how they could be able to earn their day-to-day living. So this was just catalytic and something we had hoped national government would be able to pick up and scale. I don't know to what level that has happened. I saw the issue of curricular development also being talked about in terms of handling these issues of persons with disability. But just to say that out of some of these programs that have been rolled out, there's a bit of learning that can be picked up by government. Development partners may not have the resources to run some of these programs through and through, but they're critical lessons that both our county governments and national government should be able to pick from such programs, scale them for the benefit of the vulnerable groups and for social inclusion. Now that I have this chance probably also to just also elaborate on what we are also doing here in Homa Bay County through our program called DESIP. And basically this just in realization that whenever a girl is not educated or for one reason drops out of school, you are limiting her opportunities for socioeconomic growth or opportunities to access to have a better life. So, and basically, you know how limited these our vulnerable groups, particularly girls, are limited in terms of decision making. They're not able to make certain decisions, and as such, they end up having very limited choices about the direction their life takes. So basically, we are delivering sustainable family planning products through DESIP, and basically, again, here we are targeting very vulnerable group through Population Services Kenya that is being undertaken in Homa Bay County. Further to that, tomorrow we'll be launching the multi-agency technical committee e-monitoring tool for blue economy. And basically this is about putting together data around blue economy in terms of interventions that are currently being undertaken within the Lake Region Economic Bloc. We want to believe that through this platform we'll be able to get a lot more data around interventions around these particular groups. Just like I mentioned earlier, most of our programs have inbuilt within them very strong gender equality and social inclusion aspects of it. So that's something to look forward to in terms of how can we utilize this tool in terms of picking data and documenting issues affecting the vulnerable groups, and more so how to really do affirmative action for our vulnerable groups. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. And William, I think if we were to flip the coin, particularly looking at the other groups within the marginalized communities, women and youth, and even as we talk about change of attitude, I know that when it comes to access to affirmative action funds and even credit or finances related to affirmative action, the women have done better many times than young people. Why do you think this is the case? And do you think that as you engage with all these affirmative action groups and even the finances, this conference has really, this investments conference has brought to the fore lots of conversations around agriculture. And the young people and agriculture, the youth and agriculture is almost like marginal steamer, right? What would be your word, particularly to investors in this room, talking about attitude of young people towards affirmative action funds, that women are doing better than them, even insofar as getting that money from where it is, so organizing themselves and going for the money and then repayment. Do you think that of Homa Bay are prepared to organize themselves, access these funds, and learn from the women and go the money?
Thank you. What I would say is what Madam Waziri said. The youths at the moment, because of lack of job opportunities in the market, most of them actually believed on white-collar jobs. And given that the market for these white-collar jobs is diminishing, at the moment, if a sensitization program is actually taken to sensitize the youths, most of them can actually be part and parcel of these funds, accessing the funds, as well utilizing them in agribusiness, because many youths now go up to the university, but they stay at home, they don't have jobs. But what is lacking is just sensitization. If a proper sensitization is done, then these youths can actually just on board and become part and parcel of the progress that we actually intend to make. Yes. You want to ask something? Okay.
And just proceed.
So I'm seeing that there is some positive attitude which can be inculcated in them, if at all sensitization is done proper. This one is not left just for the government alone, but it is something which is inclusive with partners.
Thank you. So sensitization, partnerships, yes, Ram?
And I think it's important to clarify that agriculture is not just about kulima, right? Because when you're talking about sensitization, I think it goes back to that. When you're talking to youth and telling them get into agriculture, the reason why they don't want to get it is because ni kulima.
It's that.
They're not looking at the value chain as a whole.
Yeah, and how prepared is a county, Madam Dolphin, to capture this digital space and the boom? Talking about cotton around here, aquaculture. Yesterday I attended one of the sessions. Can we pass mic to Madam here? And they were talking about blue economy, and I got lost in between because I didn't see a lot of youth engagement and how the county is prepared to make. I know we don't like saying this, but make agriculture. No, let me not say it because it will be very funny if I said it. Yes, please.
Thank you so much. I want to add something on the youth, but she's already covered part of it. But still, on the same note, I think it is the attitude change towards our youth. Because if you call a farmers training today, more than 70% will be the old people. And the youths are not there, meaning we are losing that generation. As she has said, it is not that physical work that involves in agriculture. It is said, and we've read, that at one point, Kenya and China, we were at par. But now see that wide range, where the China is and where Kenya is. And I think right now, the government is putting CBC in place. So those with CBC at home, I think we've started seeing some little changes somewhere. I think for the youth, it's just attitude change, and it is not the physical digging. We have some deserts in Egypt or in Israel. It's
level.
Oh,
We even have them in the sub-county.
Is any officer represented here for NCPWD?
No, he's only one officer.
Okay.
He's only one officer in the whole county. They are not there in the sub-counties.
Yes.
There's only one officer within the county.
Okay, next question, next hand. Yes, let's give it to the gentleman. Everyone will have a chance. But I pray that we make them short, that everybody can have a chance to say something. Yes,
It's
please.
an interesting discourse. My name is Jefferson. I'm a physiotherapist, and I work a lot with in the rehabilitation of people with physical disabilities, but I teach in KMTC. For me, social inclusion and this investment in Homa Bay, it all begins with rehabilitation and habilitation of all sorts of disabilities. Because the prefix in that word is the dis. We are all into fighting, doing away with this prefix, dis. Once we have the dis away, we are all able. And we'll be all talking about social exclusion and inclusion. So my interest is on availability and access to assistive technology. What are we doing? We should be pitching on that more in terms of this in this conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jefferson. Availability and access to assistive technology. Very, very interesting. And Waziri, and of course William and Daktari will be coming to you, and John and Ram here. Yes? Then we come to
Good
the
evening,
frontier.
everyone.
Evening.
I'm Evelyn Ododa, County Director for Gender. So, Homa Bay County has really made greater strides in ensuring, in empowering the vulnerable groups, that's the women, PWDs, and youth. My question is, how do we leverage on the existing affirmative funds, the Gulf funds, to support these vulnerable groups, so that we really ensure that we do not have the same beneficiaries benefiting from the national level and also to the county, in the county level? My number 2 question is in the issue of inclusion. I think as an investment conference, it will be really interesting or of benefit that we really have our organizations or our investors, including the persons with disability, in our programs from the inception till the end of programs, so that we really avoid these issues of exclusion from the word go, so that we really ensure that our PWDs benefits from all the programs that we're doing within the county. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Evelyn. Push it to the front. The lady in white here. Over here, yes.
Thank you. My name is Acheng Okomo, agenda advocate. And as we gather here today to have honest, meaningful, and insightful discussions around issues of inclusion and the special interest group, my question goes is around some of the issues that were highlighted by the CEC on how we can have areas of partnership when it comes to the dissemination of some of the policies that we have, the SGBV policy, the gender mainstreaming policy that we have, and also how we can have dialogues, and also through partnerships, how we can have various grants for SIGs. And as we come to a close of the conference tomorrow, what are some of the legislative areas that can be captured in our conference report that can be taken further to Parliament, especially when it comes to accessibility of our social institutions by those who are abled differently? Secondly, my other question is on how we understand that in the past we didn't have a good budget allocation to address social issues, but we have made steps, and up to this far we have had various programs and budgets allocated to address issues around the social inclusion programs. But from here, what are some of the areas where we can come through as a civic duty, especially by our non-state organizations, where we can lobby for percentage budget increase from the national government to our county government so that they can be able to give that, to increase the percentage allocation to help in strengthening the social inclusion programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Acheng is asking actually to make Waziri's work easy. How can non-state actors advocate for increased budgetary allocation? What are these areas that you see them coming in hand? Yes?
Thank you very much. This is Sunday Eric from UDPK. I'll be short. We have beautiful plans, but I want to reiterate on the issue of earmarking the budget and the funding, and not just cornering it to the gender and social services, because today we are here talking of farmers, and we have a disability community that are also farmers. But when you go to the Department of Agriculture, you will be sent back to the gender, saying that gender is where issues to deal with disabilities are. So we need to reiterate the vital need to have budget earmarked across all sectors. Thank you.
Very, very important, Sunday. Mainstreaming of inclusion, right? Across all departments within the budget. Waziri, that I wish we had the CC Finance here. But thank God you are here with us. Yes, Director Lucy.
Okay, thank you. I'm Director Lucy. Sometimes I am a director, sometimes I'm an activist on issues pertaining to disability. Mostly I'm an advocate for personal disability. So my point of concern, first and foremost, we have to appreciate ourselves in this room for having understood what disability is, because most of the terminologies used here are matters of disability. Thank you. My point of concern is disability here is a club that each and every person can join anytime. And it counts when we talk about the attitudinal change. Specifically, I am a woman with disability, I am a youth with disability, and I'm a person with disability, meaning it's just one stone used to kill one bird. So it doesn't mean that when somebody talk about disability, I will not just say that I'm a person with disability. It depends on the person seeing me as a person with disability. So how I wish that all of us in this room, when you are referring to somebody with disability, start with the person first before seeing the disability itself. For example, I believe you are all learning here. Let us not start using the word a disabled person. Start with the person with disability. Then lastly, I believe...
How about able differently?
That is also able. Are you saying that? You've started with the word able, not dis.
Not disabled, able.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Start with the person, the life in that person, not the disability in that person. Then I think, I don't know whether my question was answered. Maybe I didn't pay much attention.
You were not here. It was. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. The last one. Sensitization, advocacy, awareness creation should be a continuous thing. It's not something that you can say today we've done it, then we stop. So I'm still pleading with the stakeholders within this room, how I wish that we fold our hands together so that we can find a way in which we continuously sensitize, create awareness, and advocate for personal disability in different capacity. Thank you.
Asante sana, Director. Yes, Co-Director.
Okay, I'm Nixon Ochola. First, I will start with there was a question on how we can include people with disability in budget making process. I work with the budget department representing gender at the county level. Currently, we have what we call gender gender representative budgeting. It's a budget that involves both parties. It involves people with disabilities. We involve them in that budget making process. So that's what we are doing right now. So allow me go to direct to what I wanted to ask. First, I have to say this. Helping people with disability is not just involving them in these top jobs. That one is more of an individual interest. I think we need to come up with activities that are at least favorable to people with disability. If you realize most of the activities we are putting into our budget, it favors the other side and it leaves people with disabilities. We need to invest in activities that can also include people with disabilities, because right now we cannot measure their productivity. These people are very productive, but we have not given them platform to at least exercise their productivity. We need to do that. So from the national government, it's just a request that as we do budgeting, let us consider training these people with disabilities to involve in activities like digital. These are activities that doesn't require a process to at least get the output. We normally celebrate our revenue collection, the output, how we are growing the economy, leaving people with disability aside. We need to celebrate with them. If we don't involve them, then which means they are not part of us. We see them like burden people. So if we invest wisely, they can also help us to generate revenue, change the economy. They are very bright and very productive unless we invest in activities that can also consider their status, so that they also help us in promoting the economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nixon. Yes, Ndugu?
Yes, my name is Daniel Friday from Light for the World. We've talked about sensitization, awareness creation, and advocacy. One key thing that we're also missing on is for the event organizers, especially on the ones that are dealing with security. I had a very hard time trying to bring in my people who are coming to exhibit. These are micro-entrepreneurs with disabilities. Just to be able to bring them in at the main gate. Imagine somebody brings you on a border with your merchandise. You get to the gate, they tell you the border cannot come in. So at some points I had to struggle to make sure that they bring in all these things, but it was a real struggle. So for the event organizers, tafadhali, make sure you create the awareness. Teach these officers, just talk to them so that they understand how we handle persons with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Very, very important. In fact, as we pass on the microphone, one of the lessons could be from Nairobi, where working together with Governor Sakaja, who was here, and the CEC, Anastasia Nyalita, we put together the entire sector, from security, those enforcement officers, all the way to directors, to the chief officers, and they were taken through communicating to persons with disability just for 2 days. And if you look at the kind of approach that now they have, and that was based on kanjo harassment of, what are they called? Hawkers living with disability. And that's where the whole issue came from. So I resonate with that. I remember Iram shared painstakingly yesterday. We were seated somewhere. I think Waziri was also there. And I'm sure that the directors and the leadership of the county led by Waziri, they have had that from here. There are lessons that we can learn from other counties. And I think even as investors, at least now, June, we are also investors. We're also picking areas of collaboration and partnership and places where we can also just either provide technical support, capacity building, not necessarily financial. So I'm also busy taking notes on areas where we can follow up and strengthen partnerships with the county. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Isaac Onyonyi, Director of Trade, County Government of Homa Bay. Mine is a comment, not a question. Sorry, I was late. Probably if my comment was overtaken by events, you'll excuse me. I came in and at some point there was a discussion about youth involvement in agriculture. And I want to say that I think we are fond of blaming the youth before we understand them well. And I'm saying this because the youth, I believe the youth have not refused to engage in agriculture or the agricultural or agriculture value chain as traders, as farmers, as providers of equipment to be used in agriculture. But what probably we failed in first is starting at home. What comments do we make about farming? When your son or your daughter makes a comment and then you tell the child that you're arguing like a farmer.
Can you say it in Kijaluo? I think it
When you say it in Kijaluo, it sounds even bad. Even fishing is part of farming, aquaculture. And you tell your child, "Iwoyo kaje lupo." Yeah. Will that child consider fishing as an activity worth engaging in? So the thing is, let us ask ourselves, what role are we playing in terms of promoting agriculture? Because we know that when talking of food security, it begins with agriculture. And if we can't crowd in the sector as a majority, and if we can't talk well about it, then we'll lose it out. Secondly is, how do we position farming or agriculture? Do we position it as a decent activity to engage in, to earn a living? Yeah. What kind of materials that we would use as people in the government, people in the as development partners in terms of promoting agriculture? What kind of even photos do we use? Talking of even looking at the image of the person on a brochure as a farmer. Is it attractive? Yeah. So these are some of the things that we need to look at. And then finally, we need to segment the youth from the older people when we want to engage them, so that we also organize activities which resonate well with them in the locations where they feel comfortable. But if you get this young person together with his grandmother in the same hall, and you expect the young person to feel comfortable and to engage productively, it may be difficult. So there's a lot that I would say begins with us, and there's a lot in terms of segmenting this population, and there's a lot in terms of positioning agriculture as an activity, and actually making it to look as attractive as any other activity. Let us give good examples, success stories, because people like what is positive. But when we engage in negative talks about an activity and we want to blame the people we want to crowd in that they are not taking it up, then it is us who are the enemy of those we want to engage in these activities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Wanyonyi, for those...
Onyonyi.
Onyonyi. Onyonyi, I thought... Oh, we still have two more hands. So we'll allow you, because when we return, we make our responses and final comments so that we can close.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Gordon Nyambok from the County Pensions Fund. I'm here, allow me to wear the two hats, first as a partner and as a caregiver. I had two issues. First, because partnership and donor funding relies on statistics and data. Where there is no data and statistics, you cannot make a request, and your request may not pass through the test. But I'm happy because there is progress made in this session that there's going to be a database. Because that same database is what you will use in your awareness and inclusivity forums. Who are you calling to empower? Who are you calling to sensitize? That is my number one concern. It should be a priority, because investors will not come where there is no, or you use ambiguous terms like most, some. Those are not good terms. Real figures is necessary, and it is necessary now. It's going to be very necessary, and that means going to my number two, which is collaboration. How are other CBOs within the county collaborating with the county government? What are they championing? What database are they using? Who are they representing? Should they forward those details to the county for that collaborative efforts, so that there is seamless efforts in terms of mainstreaming? So collaboration, again, should be both horizontal and vertical. Within the county, how is the Department of Gender collaborating with agriculture, for example? If you are going to create awareness, for example, the youth, on farming, is the other arm aware? How is that effort seamless, so that there is demystification of this attitude and people change? Because where the panelists are both able to answer, I answer agriculture, the other gender, the other finance, you get to understand from the broader perspective, not the specific perspective of your line. So there is that need for collaboration and for the database to be generated well. And for the other NGOs around, I get there is a Homa Bay County Disability Forum. There is very much need for you to collaborate with other NGOs and CBOs, so that interests do not conflict, your funding do not conflict in terms of requests to donors, and also you eliminate what we ordinarily know, briefcasing. Because briefcasing makes even the funders to run away, because funders are always connected, there is networking. So when you are collaborating, when you are open, the county knows the CBOs championing the disability, the able differently issues, it is an open network and investors will be ready, because there is data that is solid and harmonized with the county government.
Thank you so much, Ndugu Gordon. I think we have a last hand.
Allow me to thank Jefferson, who raised the issue on assistive technology.
Yes.
Personally, I am a father to a CP child, and this is the right forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gordon. Yes. Now I have to exercise leadership, because we agreed that we were starting this way, there, and ending that way. But now I'm seeing hands even from here. Na hapa tushapita mandugu na madada zangu. Munataka tufanye nini? Munataka nifanye nini? Okay, let's try to be brief so that we can remaining two as well. Yes, please.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Mwema Wambua. I handle industry and investment in the county government of Machakos, Department of Industry and Innovation. A concern that I may raise, perhaps if one of us is not raised, is about compliance. We may have all these many laws or legislations, but as the implementers of the laws and legislations, do we comply with them, especially on matters inclusivity? Allow me to mention the case of AGPO, access to government procurement opportunities. As the implementers of government policies, how often do we comply with this? I handle the Department of, I work in the Department of Industry and Innovation. How much of procurement in that particular department goes into our brothers and sisters handling matters procurement? We representing different government agencies in this particular setting. How many of us are able to audit their departments or their agencies and speak fluently on how much of their procurement goes to our brothers and sisters living with disabilities. In this financial year, how much of procurement as an implementer, a decision maker, a policy maker in that department, how much of that has gone into our brothers and sisters living with disabilities? Are we able to individually do personal audit and actually enforce those policy documents? Then the second question would be about innovation. We're living in the age of data science. For the longest, I would have wished to hear how innovations like AI, how we can have our brothers and sisters living with disabilities incorporated into that conversation about AI. Are there innovations that are linking that particular segment of the community to any developments relating to AI? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Mwema. You know, if Director Lucy was given the power to arrest and prosecute and ile ya mwisho huitwa and convict, she could have done that effectively on you, because you kept saying persons living with disability, and she kept saying we ignore the word living, is persons with. And I was seeing her really getting very edgy, but if we promise to be very brief, tutakubaliana, because my panelists also want to go and catch flights from Kisumu. Yes, very briefly, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm George Okoth, the County Director of Fisheries. I felt that I should make some comment, being that Homa Bay is big on fisheries. And, you know, fisheries, most of the challenges that we face are actually social. We've been talking about so much about people abled differently, but there are also other social issues that we should also highlight, especially from our fisheries sector. One of them is child labor. Many times we've had cases of school children, you know, during holidays going into the lake, a boat capsizes, then you hear that maybe a class 7 or a class 8 pupil has drowned. So child labor is one of the big issues that we have to deal with. Then another one is drug and alcohol abuse. You know, here they call it blanketi. You know, when they're going to the lake, they have to smoke it so that they are oblivious of the dangers at night. So again, that's one of the areas that we have to deal with, you know, drug and alcohol abuse. We've had cases of accident at the lake, you know, somebody, you know, drinking or smoking, and then goes to the lake alone, which is not allowed. So he snakes to the lake, and, you know, overnight you hear that somebody got drowned, you just find the boat there alone. So those are other issues that, social issues that I felt that I should bring to the table, so that we think about them as we talk about our blue economy space and fisheries. Those are some of the challenges that we are facing. Thank you.
Asante sana. Last but
maybe,
not the least.
Maybe when it's still on the floor, yes. In Homa Bay, we are grappling with the problem of fish, sex for fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, sex for fish. Now that is in fisheries, what strategies do you people have in place to help us have a solution to this?
Dealing with the Jaboya.
Jaboya issue, yes.
And the cultural one.
Yeah. I think that one comes about as a result of demand, you know.
You answer together with this.
Okay.
And how do you decide on who should be going to fish and who should not be going to fish? Like in Homa Bay, I only see men fishing.
Okay. The issue of sex for fish it comes about as a result of demand, you know. Over the years, you know, fish catch has been going down. So we have been thinking of, you know, other alternative livelihoods. For example, we've had partners, you know, supporting us, you know, to support women groups to have cages. So instead of, you know, that competition to get fish from men who have gone to the lake, they can have their cage and produce their fish and sell. So alternative livelihoods. And then on the matter of determining who goes to fish, whether men, fishing by nature does not favor the female gender, because a lot of it is done at night. And, when you are out there, the lake is rough, it is lonely out there for a lady. It is not very easy. But now, there's this type of fishing called beach seining, You just set your net, then you stand on the beach. Then you drag it. That one you can find women doing. But the other one that involves going to the lake, even for 2-3 days, you are out there, is not favorable for ladies. So by nature, fishing is not favorable for female gender. So that explains the reason why. But as I've just said, we are coming up with other alternatives, so that our females should also have access to fish without necessarily having to go to the lake. So fish farming has come in. We are encouraging cage fish farming and even pond fish farming. And so many of our ladies are now taking up this venture. They are owning ponds and even cages. Thank you.
Shukran. Thank you so much, Bwana George, right? For those very, very detailed comments about a number of cross-cutting issues. And Waziri, my good friends here seemingly have a response to the question on sex for fish and fish for sex. So as you make your final comments, Iram and John, please make sure that you touch on that big dilemma that Waziri has. Because I can imagine the effects, including issues around education, the triple threat of all these, adolescent sexual reproductive health issues, education. Just look at the entire quote-unquote value chain of what the consequences could be. But allow me, therefore, to come back to the panelists. We each have 3 minutes to respond to any of the questions. And Ndugu William, remember AGPO. We've been dealing with affirmative action funds. In fact, the organization where I serve at, County Governance Watch, has hosted the CEOs of affirmative action funds for 2 high-level meetings. And if you look at the challenges that come with AGPO, I think those are challenges that government needs to be very, to make a deliberate decision to deal with. And so probably you can help us understand Bwana Mwema's question around AGPO and how we can be able to also follow through on access and also the entire value chain. So where do we start, here or there? I want us to finish with Waziri. So we'll start with the middle. So we'll go William, Iram, Dr. Ruth, then John, then we go back to Waziri. Is that fine? So, Director.
Asante. There is also an area which I wanted also to respond on about the funds, double beneficiaries. So the double beneficiaries, though much has not been done, but my response to it is these financing institutions, like the one dealing with the NGAF, one dealing with the WESO Fund, Women Enterprise Fund, Youth Enterprise Fund. So the best solution to that is just a sharing of the database, where this organization needs to actually share what the beneficiaries, so that we don't have one person benefiting twice, thrice like that. As well, apart from that, we need also to actually be open. We don't work in silos where the organizations want to just keep their records alone. They don't want to share with others. So we need actually to collaborate as departments so that we can solve such cases. On AGPO, this one is not actually well addressed. We still find that many institutions, government and non-governmental organizations, they are not adhering to this one. The 30% access to government opportunities, which is actually a preferential for people living with disability. People with disability, youth and women. And there's the Department of, that is the Treasury, is the one which is actually dealing with this. But even other departments need to have a report. They are supposed to be reporting to their superiors on how this one is done. Like every financial year, we need to give a report on how we have actually gave opportunities to the youths, women, and people with disability. But this one is not very much undertaken. So we just still appeal to us in government and in our other organizations that there is need for that, the 30%. So when we have procurement, the 30% should actually be directed to them. I think those are the two areas that I would have something to say.
I think just to echo on William also is for those organizations that want to engage persons with disabilities using AGPO, please verify the AGPO holders. The challenge we have been facing is persons with disabilities are used as the face and not the real holders of that certificate. Right? And it's a big challenge. I know we are working with the National Council to see how to address that issue. If you look at all the government institutions that are supposed to work on AGPO and the 30%, persons with disabilities have not even received 2% of that budget. It's sad. Right? And again, next thing is other than the 30%, there's a 2% allocation in your procurement budget that should be allocated to persons with disabilities. That doesn't come. So it's something we need to address. I think for me, it's important to note that disability is a cause or a consequence of poverty. Investments need to come, and as they come into the different counties, we need to have quotas allocated to persons with disabilities. That's my only call for action. Simply because they're always forgotten, there's always a belief that they cannot do it, or they're nowhere to be found. Is when you go to institutions and say, why are you not giving persons with disabilities opportunities? You don't know where. Sorry. Okay, it's working. You don't know where to find them because you have not gone out to look for them. You need to be deliberate. We have institutions like KPLC who actually do call-outs, who do trainings for persons with disabilities to accord them that opportunity. So we need to be very deliberate and intentional when it comes to engaging persons with disabilities. The other thing for me also is to note that we need to have persons with disabilities around the table when we're making these decisions. The 5% can be achieved easily. We have persons with disabilities in TVETs, we have persons with disabilities in universities, and as I mentioned earlier, they are professional interns because the mindset is not ready for them. Let's start from there. As an institution, we do give disability awareness trainings for free to institutions. Right? We walk that journey as long as at the end there's a commitment to engage persons with disabilities, either on procurement, employment, or anywhere within the entrepreneurship arm. So if there's a guarantee on that, we will walk on that journey with individuals. We work with the different counties. We have worked with Homa Bay. We are currently training Migori County. We have trained their CECs. We have trained their chief officers and directors, and we're now going into ward, they're called ward administrators and all that on inclusion. We have done that also in Nanyuki, Laikipia. We have done that in Meru. We are working with the different counties to ensure that they have persons who are working within the county governments to embrace inclusion from all aspects. So yeah, let's stop that poverty by engaging persons with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. When we're looking at affirmative action for purposes of inclusivity of all the vulnerable groups, the women, the youth, the persons with disability, I can't overemphasize the need for deliberate efforts, deliberate actions. Because if we do not, then we end up creating a culture of dependency. And when you create a culture of dependency, you are creating consumers and not producers. So as a county, you end up being poorer for failing to do something that you could have done. There's somebody who said that he has 2 children. It's you. 1, I have 2. But 2 who have completed university. 1 is an engineer, independent. The other one completed her course last year. She's a researcher, and she did so with a first-class honors degree in sciences. Why? Because I chose not to foster dependency. So as a county, if you do not want to create a culture of dependency where people are only consumers, you must have a very, very deliberate effort towards inclusivity at all levels. And I want to challenge the CC, is it Director, Fisheries? Huh? Yes, you must deal with some of these things head on. No sex for fish. You know, and don't explain it away. Deal with it. Because if we do not deal with an issue, it becomes an entrenched thing. It becomes a culture and a disease that is harder to treat than if we looked at it and said, this is wrong, so what do we do? And we don't say it's because the fish are fewer in the lake. Women cannot go out and fish at night. Nowadays, I don't think there's any place where women can't go. I believe in women working. I believe in equitable opportunities. Not equal, but equitable opportunities for all people. Because if we do that and we are deliberate about our efforts as a county, we will get there. KUTRRH is one place where we have even tilted the balance in terms of employment. 55% of our employees are women. 45 are male. And if you look even at the top leadership, and even as a country, it must be through very, very deliberate effort, so that we grow as a nation, we grow at the county levels. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great reflections this evening and insights. No question came to me directly, but just thinking about some of the issues that have come up, more so around affirmative action and entrepreneurship. And in terms of what the county could do more of, has been talked to, largely around AGPO and just making sure that the right people are actually benefiting. Over and above that, I think it's also time to look at the pending bills that are not just hurting ordinary businesses, but will be affecting these vulnerable groups even much more. Just trying to make sure that our entrepreneurs, particularly from the special groups, are paid on time so that their enterprises are therefore then able to thrive. But I will want to also join the speakers in just affirming the need to be very deliberate about how we integrate or mainstream issues of gender, equality, and social inclusion on all aspects of our planning and design and implementation of our programs, including monitoring and evaluation, as already been stated. It's not enough to have the policies in place, but we need to be more proactive in terms of assessing how effective are they, how are they being implemented, so that then we are able to stay true to the objective around gender equality and social inclusion. And finally, about the difficult social aspects around entrepreneurship, more so in the blue economy. I think Chairman has illustrated the challenges that they are facing. The scarcity of fish, the demand is very high, and some of the social ills are very difficult to really handle. But if you look at what vulnerability is all about and how it gets exacerbated, usually it's about also not understanding our rights. So we also need to put issues of human rights, reproductive health rights at the center of how we empower the vulnerable groups. That right to be able to access even family planning products is a step in the right direction in terms of empowering our girls and women so that they don't move a stage higher in vulnerability than they already are. So I think those are some of the areas we can look at in terms of just making sure that our special groups are really empowered to properly engage socially and economically. Otherwise, I thank you, and thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Asante sana. We'll now have the last speaker, Waziri, who will also make comments and then officially close. And one of our viewers is telling me that he has a solution to sex for fish. Okay. I don't think we want to open up that box now. Yeah. Not fish for sex. Mm-hmm. Sex for fish.
It is either way.
Locally here, and actually either way. So I don't think Director Onyonyi will give you that time because we're really pressed for time. But Waziri, host us again.
I will. It looks like we can debate and really have a lot of information around this discussion. We can take the whole evening and the whole night, and we won't be able to finish. First of all, I want to say all our observations and deliberations have been very, very fruitful. And I'm happy with the participation of everyone. There was a question that was directed to me on budgets. And I think as a country, we've involved our CSO network in developing our budgets. If anybody in that network is present, they will confirm this. Recently, we called them when we were doing our supplementary 2, and their input were taken in place. And I want to say that even in AGPO, as a county, we really consider our people with disability. Might not be 100%, but we're really trying to follow up that every department, in whatever location, whatever activity, especially on procurement or procurable items, our youth, our women, and people with disability are factored in. It's not easy because sometimes I don't see it in all meetings of all the departments. But whenever it comes to cabinet, I always share with my people and we follow up. I wanted also to comment that this meeting has brought very good takeaways from us and directors from my department, staff from the county. Please note, I want to appreciate Ken Invest, not only for coming to this session, but also for holding our hands. Her Excellency already did in a speech, but also for coming forth for the youth with your programs. Please work with us. Don't leave Homa Bay behind. In your, you called it where Kesha Dada and Vijana Tuju Invest. Yeah, I think your contacts will be needed after this. And Mr. Kevin, for the database development. It is true without data, it might be very difficult even to approach a partner to assist. But with valid data, we can always collaborate and share information that we have with our partners. This will also help us to eliminate double assistance to our people. The numbers are big, and if we all keep what we are doing to ourselves in our own spaces, we might just be duplicating, and there would be no fresh life coming into the people we are targeting. I also know that Light for the World has been doing something with us, but now that Ram has also said they can train, I think there is a window for us there for training for our staff on how to handle persons with disability. Yes, and I think that deserves a clap from Aram. Our people must not be mishandled, especially those with disability. Otherwise, for me as the CEC, I'm committed to make sure that the policies that have already been put in place and the acts that we are developing, currently we are developing a disability act, and when it shall come forth, I'll make sure that we implement. Yes, and we also mainstream our issues for the marginalized groups. Otherwise, thank you, and I want to appreciate this panel. And also audit. Yeah, and also audit even other departments, what they're doing for us. Otherwise, thank you, Kevin, and the whole panel. Thank you so much.
Makofi kwa moja, ingine, tatu, ine, tano, sita, saba. Where are our rapporteurs again? By show of hands? Yeah, so how do we get the report? Oh, through Director Lucy. Lucy, when do we get the report? Accountability. 7 days. Oh, 7 today. Yeah, so Waziri, you can share that report with us, at least just so that we take note of the issues. I've also taken this book is half full of notes from this session, so we'll just be able to fill up, including some of the follow-up issues and also the major issues that have also come up that need the communique of the wider report which is going to be issued. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your being here. Normally, when I go training in Mashinani Huko, the CEO of the one who was doing Muvua, Koth, Nido, Koth, Nido. So normally they do factorial claps. Somebody knows factorial? And Atieno Acheng, Helen Atieno is reminding me that in Homa Bay, they have a network of civil society organizations that are working together, and that through that process, they monitor so that there are no duplicities of either functions, resources, etc. And please, there is a phone that has been misplaced by our good investor at the back there, Techno 4. Please stand so that we can see you. If you have seen a phone which is not yours, please let us hand it over to her. So we're going to give them 6 factorial claps, or including mine, so 7. But you are 78 of you in the room, so I don't know how we will give ourselves 78 claps. 78, but it's possible, so we can give ourselves 8 factorial claps. So 1 is yours, 1 is mine, And then each of them also has their claps. It goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1. If anyone messes up that factor, the formula is wrong. So you start again. So if you want to clap until the former Prime Minister comes back tomorrow, shauri yetu. Sawa? Okay, let's prepare our hands. Koroga, koroga vizuri mkono. So we are starting with 8, okay? 1, 2, 3, go. Order, Director Fisheries. Now ukikosea unaamka juu. Please now stand up. So we start again. Okay, let's start. We start with 8. So there are 8 claps, okay? 8, 7, 6, 5, like that, up to 1. Let's go on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1.